A few weeks ago, we took the heart out of this Beetle. An engine that has been replaced before, but that was never truly understood. Today, that engine's already fully apart, and while we might not know exactly why it failed yet, we can finally start doing things differently.
In the last video, we talked a lot about the past of this car.
This Beetle has been fully restored but was then parked away after the engine failed almost 20 years ago. Together with its owner Pascal, we finally pulled it out of his garage and brought it to my workspace. And instead of swapping another engine like had been done before, we decided to take it apart ourselves and see what was really going on inside. We removed the engine, stripped it down completely and started collecting new parts.
Today isn't about that anymore. Today is about doing the work.
After pulling the engine out, we decided not to guess anything. So we took the disassembled engine to the machine shop to get parts like the crankcase and crankshaft checked properly. Of course, we also got all new bearings since these were the parts that made the engine fail.
So we took this engine and all of the other components to a machine shop to get it checked properly and to get everything measured in. Because of course we aren't professionals and this is our first time working on a Beetle engine. But the most important part, of course, are all of the new bearings, because that's why this engine has died, and we did get everything measured properly. So now I think we are finally ready for the rebuild. Now looking at these old versus the new bearings, I am so excited to start rebuilding this, because I think this engine will finally get the attention it deserves.
First thing we tried to do was to replace the main bearings on the crankshaft. But then we already ran into our first problem.
Well, we just found out that we need special pliers to remove this, and a quick search online also taught us that we will need a press to replace this bearing. So we're gonna go and head to full service, and then I think we're going to try and put the new bearings on there.
After a short 20-minute drive, we arrived at our local garage full service where we could use some proper tools. To reach the main bearing, two gears first had to come off the crankshaft. Pascal used a pulley puller to remove them, and luckily everything came apart surprisingly smoothly. Since we'd never worked on an engine like this before, the bearing design did look a bit weird to us, as it's a single solid piece rather than two half shells we're used to. Different construction, but the principle's actually quite straightforward. Earlier that day, our research suggested we'd need a press to reinstall the gears, but after another quick search we found another approach. Heating the gears so they expand slightly, allowing them to slide back onto the crankshaft without force. And honestly, it worked better than we expected, turning this into one of those moments where a bit of shared knowledge on the internet makes the job feel a whole lot less intimidating. Yes, it was still a bit of a struggle, but that was to be expected when doing a job like this for the very first time.
We are back, and since the crankshaft was already such a pain in the ass, we decided to buy a Haynes manual. So hopefully we can rebuild the rest of the engine with the help of this manual, and I think we will be able to do it, but let's give this a go.
For transport, it was easier to bolt the crankcase back together, but now that we're ready to rebuild it, the first step is splitting it again. I started by thoroughly cleaning the bores where the valve tappets sit, because according to the manual, these are the first components that need to go back into the case. And since we've been struggling enough already, I decided to just stick to the given steps. Before reinstalling them, I coated everything with fresh oil and also added a light film inside the crankcase itself to make sure nothing goes back together dry. And yes, I'm just using oil here. If the engine was going to sit for a long time before running, a sandy loop would probably be the safer choice. But since this engine should be running again relatively soon, oil will do the job just fine. Then I also reinstalled the tappets into the other side of the crankcase, which wasn't according to the manual, but I guess I just can't read. The machine shop had removed the locating dowel pins from the crankcase so they could properly measure whether the bearing saddles were still straight. So the next step was putting those pins back in place. After giving the surfaces a good grease, I installed the main bearing shell that sits directly in the crankcase, making sure everything was clean and properly aligned before moving on. I then continued by further assembling the crankshaft, installing another main bearing and the oil thrower disc, securing everything with the according pin.
Well, Pascal just got back, so he can now help me assemble the conrod on the crankshaft, yes.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Teamwork makes the dream work. Yeah, where's the brake cleaner then?
I don't know.
Just like with the main bearings, we installed the conrod bearings onto the conrods dry, only applying oil to the inside surface of the bearing, which is the part that actually runs on the crankshaft. And just like during this assembly, reinstalling the conrods felt a bit strange to us, simply because this setup is so different from the engines we usually work on. But with a little bit of teamwork, this is just as easy to do. Like always, working on a project car takes up a whole lot more time than you expect at the beginning. So it was quickly getting pretty late already. Some of you may have already noticed it, but we made a pretty dumb mistake here, and I think you can clearly see we're not used to working on flat fours.
Alright, so we just got here and it got a bit late yesterday, and we were just sitting around this table looking at this crankshaft, and then we noticed it got a bit late yesterday because we totally messed up this part because we installed these conrods on the wrong way. So I think that's the first thing we gotta do, but yeah, that happens sometimes.
So in a way, this feels like repeating the same job we already did yesterday. But the difference now is that we understand what we're doing, and more importantly, we're doing it properly this time. And that's really what this whole project's about. Not rushing, but taking the time to get things right. And honestly, practice makes perfect. Going through the crankshaft assembly again didn't feel like extra work anymore, but more like a chance to build confidence before the engine finally goes back together for good. That all felt right until we started torquing down the conrod bolts.
Okay, now after torquing down the conrod bolts, they don't turn anymore. So I feel like this is the wrong side of bearing. So we're going back to the machine shop to get new bearings measured, because I think we just got the wrong ones because we already got them measured. But we're just going back, and I kind of wish we didn't start this project because it turns out to be way harder than we expected. But yeah, it's just how it goes and we can't stop here, I guess. Well, turns out the bearings weren't the problem, it's the conrods. So we got another set that is good. So hopefully when we install this, it does want to turn, but I'm pretty sure because we did get it checked this time.
So the issue with the old conrods was that they were no longer perfectly round. As you may have seen in the previous video, the edges had turned slightly blue, which usually indicates that the engine is overheated. That heat likely didn't just damage the bearings, but may have also affected the conrods themselves. Luckily, we managed to get our hands on another set of conrods and had them checked properly to make sure everything was still within spec before reinstalling them.
Alright, the moment of truth. Will they still turn when we torque them down? Let's see. Well, that seems to be the fix, so now let's continue rebuilding the rest.
Next up, we could finally go and put the crankshaft assembly back into the crankcase, which felt a bit unnatural with those two conrods dangling on the underside. After lining up the main bearings with the dowel pins, I could go and install the new camshaft bearings and of course the camshaft itself. This is where the manual came in really handy, cause it taught me where the timing marks were. To get ready for closing up the case again, I then applied oil to the valve tappets and the bearings on the other half of the crankcase. That way everything would already be lubricated the moment the two halves come back together. At this point, all the important internals were finally back in place and we were getting closer to sealing the engine up again. We started by carefully degreasing both mating surfaces, since even a small amount of oil or dirt can prevent the sealant from doing its job. Once everything was clean, we applied a thin layer of liquid gasket to both sides of the case, as the manual recommends. With engines like these, sealing the case properly is very important, because once it's all closed up, you really don't want to take it apart again just because of a small oil leak. So we took our time here, spreading the sealant evenly and making sure every edge was properly covered. It's one of those small steps that doesn't look very exciting on camera, but it does make a big difference for how reliable the engine will be once it's running again.
Yeah. It's nice. It is now the next day and I'm here on my own today because Pascal has work and I got the day off. Now, I would actually love to go and continue rebuilding the engine, but Pascal really enjoys doing that too, and since it's his car, I'm going to wait for him because we can do it together next weekend. But of course, since I got the day off, that doesn't mean I cannot do anything today, because there's still a whole lot of parts that need to be restored since we're building them back into a fully restored car. So today I'm going to go and repaint all of these parts so that everything's nice and fresh again before we continue the rebuild.
Even though it might not look too bad on camera, most of the parts were actually pretty dirty. So the first step was simple: give everything a proper clean. I had completely forgotten to bring any decent cleaning cloths, so I started out using paper towels, thinking that would be quicker. Well, that turned out to be a terrible idea, because the paper just kept falling apart everywhere. So after fighting with that for a while, I gave up and made a quick trip to the store to get some real cloths, which immediately made the whole job a lot easier. And yes, that definitely would have saved me some time if I had done that from the start.
You know, usually this whole sanding and restoring parts is my least favorite part of a car restoration process. But this time I'm actually pretty excited because I cannot wait to show Pascal this result, because I think he will be super happy, because we actually thought we didn't really have time to do all of this because we do want to finish that car too. But I do want to take time to do everything nice and properly this time.
After cleaning, it was time for the next step: sanding. The goal here is to get everything as smooth as possible before paint, and I'm really trying to do this properly. But at the same time, this is still an old car that we're restoring ourselves. So I already know it's never going to be absolutely perfect. And honestly, I think that's part of the charm of working on something like this.
Alright, after I've been sanding for hours already, it is finally time to go and sand the last part, and then we can finally get to the painting.
Now that everything's nicely sanded, it is time to prepare the parts for paint. I'm not spraying everything at once, so I started by laying a few parts out on a plastic sheet and giving them a thorough degrease just to make sure the paint will properly stick. And now it's finally time for paint. I decided to stick with black, just like these parts originally came from the factory. The Beetle itself already has a pretty bright color, so I don't want to make the engine bay too flashy or distracting. Instead, the goal here is to make everything look clean, fresh and cohesive again. I'm applying the paint in several thin layers, using a heat gun in between to help the coat cure properly. Of course, I could have simply ordered new parts and bolted everything back together, but we are doing this project on a tight budget and I actually really enjoyed this part of the process. Bringing old components back to life feels more rewarding, and it keeps a bit of the car's original character intact.
Alright, got everything nice and repainted, and even though it doesn't look perfect, I think everything looks pretty decent. So I'm gonna let everything harden out here for a bit, and then next weekend we can finally continue with the rebuild.
Now that all of the parts have been repainted, it is time to continue with the rebuild. Last weekend we finished assembling the short block, so today the plan is to complete the long block and finally get the most difficult part of this project out of the way. And I say difficult because of the way these pistons and cylinders go back in. If you're used to working on flat floors like this, it probably looks completely normal, but for us it felt a bit unnatural to put the piston into the cylinder first and then reinstall the whole thing as one assembly. With the piston assemblies installed, Pascal went ahead and mounted the cylinder deflector tin. And once that was in place, we could move on to installing the pushrod tubes. But before putting them back in place, I replaced the seals that sit between the pushrod tubes and the crankcase, and the ones that seal them against the cylinder head. We first installed metal seals on top of the cylinders like the manual suggested, but when the cylinder head didn't fit, we double-checked the manual and realized that didn't apply for our engine. So we removed them again before continuing. Before bolting on the cylinder head, we first had to install the pushrod tubes. We had been told that these seals are known to leak, so it's a good idea to add some liquid sealant on top of them. So I applied the sealant and then Pascal installed the tubes. The bolt thread didn't come through the cylinder head as far as we expected, which made us think something was wrong. At first we thought the head wasn't seated properly, but after reinstalling it and getting the same result, we assumed it might fall into place once we tightened the bolts. But before tightening all of the bolts, we decided to start with the other side first. I think you know the drill by now, since this side's exactly the same as the other. And honestly, it felt a lot easier this time around, now that we've done it before. But even though it felt like this was going so smoothly, once we fitted this cylinder head, we ran into the same problem as on the other side. After taking a closer look, we realized the piston jugs were the culprit. So we removed the cylinder head again, tilted the engine and carefully tried pushing the jugs deeper into the crankcase. With some new sealant, cause we had been touching the old layer a bit too much.
Alright, so we ran into our 10th problem or something, because we got new conrods, and as a package deal we also got new pistons and new piston jugs, and we thought it would be better to install those because we were 100% sure they were good, even though the old ones did look very good as well. But we ran into a little problem because it felt like the piston jugs wouldn't go all the way in to the crankcase, but we tapped them on and we felt like this is the end, we can't get them any further, so we continued installing everything, but we just took apart one side because it turns out these piston jugs are different from the original ones, so they don't even fit into this crankcase, so we have to do everything all over again. As you can see, this is a new piston jug and this is a whole lot thicker than this on the old piston jug, so that's why it doesn't want to fit entirely into the crankcase, so we gotta fit these one in.
And so we found ourselves starting the process all over again. Every part we had carefully installed this weekend had to come off. We removed the cylinder head, took the pistons out of the wrong size jugs and started prepping the original piston jugs to go back in. I'll be honest, at that moment it felt a little discouraging, like we were taking 2 steps back for every step forward. But that's exactly what learning something new feels like. The upside is that we got a lot of practice in. Every mistake became a chance to understand the engine better, to figure out how all of the parts fit together, and to develop a rhythm for reinstalling everything correctly. In a strange way, we've rebuilt this engine twice now. Once the first time, and again after correcting all of the mistakes. And what's really cool is that with each rebuild, we've learned a little bit more. We've learned how the pistons sit in their jogs, how the cylinder heads align perfectly, and how much patience this type of engine actually demands. Looking back, I realized that all the stepping back and starting over wasn't wasted time, it was building confidence. By the end of this second rebuild, I honestly feel like we could do it again, without nearly as many mistakes. And that's a huge milestone for us. Because while this Beetle has been silent for 20 years, and while the engine has had its fair share of trouble, what we've done here isn't just about fixing a car. It's about understanding it. And I feel like we got to understand this Beetle engine a whole lot better during the past few weekends. Luckily, our second attempt did turn out to be successful. We could now easily go and put the nuts for the cylinder head back in place and torque them down according to spec. And now it was time to finally start moving forward again. I put the push rods back in place after cleaning them and pouring some fresh oil over them. After which I reinstalled the rocker arm. With everything in place, we were ready to flip the engine again. But before that, we figured it was the perfect moment to reinstall the oil sump plate with, of course, some new gaskets.
Alright, we finally got everything installed properly, and funny story, because this little cover, even though I got everything repainted myself, I got this powder coated, so because a colleague of ours offered to powder coat it for us as a bit of practice, and after being done he dropped it, damaging it, so he had to do it twice. So he made a little sticker that says "Fill Forward" that fits on here perfectly, and at first I didn't want to put it on there, but according to how this whole project's going, I think this sticker's perfect, so I am going to put it on here.
Then we flipped the engine, or should I say Pascal did. Luckily, this Beetle engine isn't too heavy. Today, our goal was to finish the long block, and as you can see, 2 important parts are still missing: the rocker covers. But, of course, we can't install those without checking the valve clearance first. I'm glad we did, because they actually needed quite a bit of adjustment. With the valve clearance being adjusted to spec, it was time for the finishing touch, the rocker cover. Of course, I gave both mating surfaces a thorough degrease first, after which I put the new gasket into place. And with the valve cover on, this finally looks like a complete engine again.
Well, this long block's all nice and done, and I cannot wait to go and reinstall it into the car, but there's something else that needs to be done first. Because before we can go and reinstall this engine, there's something else that needs to be done first, and that's this, because it doesn't make sense to reinstall a fresh rebuilt engine into this messy engine bay.
Cleaning the engine bay is one of those jobs that's easy to skip. It doesn't add power, it doesn't make the car faster, but it does change how you treat everything that comes after. And that's why I decided to thoroughly clean this engine bay before reinstalling the engine. So I got the dusty and cleaning brush out and started scrubbing right away. Luckily, it's a small engine bay and it wasn't too dirty. But for the stubborn dirt, I decided to get something better to clean than a hand brush. With the drill brush, it was even easier to get everything nice and clean. But of course, I did have to look out not to damage the paint since I'm not really looking for an extra paint job. But like I said, for stubborn dirt, this works like a charm.
Well, that looks so much better. So now the Beetle is finally ready for the engine to be reinstalled. But of course, that will be for next week. So please stay tuned for that. Next week will be less about rebuilding and more about finding out what all of this work was for. So I hope you enjoyed this week. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.